only when it is of use to the community or race. Once again, organicism. Okay, etc. Okay, in World War I, IQ tests were first used on a mass basis to test army recruits for aptitude. Okay, they were given in English. As a result, and the questions involved all kinds of Americana, like who plays third base for the Detroit Tigers, okay? Stuff like this. And so this was the basis for evaluating intelligence. And, okay, lo and behold, native-born Americans did better than foreign immigrants. They also discovered, by the way, that foreign immigrants who had come to the U.S. 10 years ago did much better than more recent foreign immigrants. And those that came here 20 years ago were even more intelligent. Okay, and this proved that while the immigrants of 20 years ago were pretty bad, they were the best of the lot. The ones we're getting now are total morons. Okay, we're now scraping the bottom of the barrel. Okay, and this is threatening the complete mental degeneration of the United States unless this is stopped. So they use this as evidence to demand restriction of immigrants, which were biased towards people from Nordic countries, the new immigration quotas of the 1920s immigration laws, which became increasingly rigged in this direction. Now, here's Henry Fairfield Osborn. We'll hear a little bit more about him in a minute. He's president of the American Museum of Natural History, which is a big center for the eugenics group. Okay. It says, I believe these tests, these are the IQ tests, were worth what the war cost, even in human life, if they served to show clearly to our people the lack of intelligence in our country and the degrees of intelligence in different races who are coming to us in a way which no one can say is a result of prejudice. We have learned once and for all that the Negro is not like us. So in regards to many races and sub-races of Europe, we learned that some we believe possess an order of intelligence perhaps superior to ours, i.e. Jews, were far inferior. Was worth what the war cost in order to get this IQ test done. Okay, because it allowed them to shut down the Golden Door. 1932, Third International Congress of Eugenics is held at the museum. You've got the whole social register is there. You got people like Madison Grant and Henry Fairfield Osborn and his brother Frederick Osborn, and the people from the Eugenics Records Office and various other people like that. Leonard Darwin, son of Charles Darwin, is there. Other Brits. Margaret Sanger, Birth Control League. Franz Boas, the mentor of Margaret Mead. Herman Muller, he's an interesting character. He's an outlier at the conference. Most of these people were pro-Nazi. Muller was a communist. And not just a rank-and-file communist. He knew Stalin. Okay? And the great story about Muller is he is unique in the entire world as the only person ever to shock the moral sensibilities of Joseph Stalin. Okay, because he went up to Stalin in 1936 with a proposal that they engage in the selective breeding of the Soviet population. They'll pick out one man out of every 100 with superior genetic traits, and only they would be allowed to breed with the women. And thus they could improve the Soviet racial stock. Stalin thought he was insane, ordered him killed, but he got word, because he had friends in the NKVD. He got out of the country, came to the U.S., and he was a real scientist, though. He actually won the Nobel Prize for genetics. He did the classic work on Drosophila that you read about in high school biology classes. And he also set up the sperm bank, and he did a bunch of other wild stuff. Also key in setting up the pugwash movement for disarmament. But anyway, so he's kind of an outlier. Then you have various people, Guy Irving Birch, who we'll get to later, various other eugenicists. They're all discussed in the book. But the real stars are the members of the German Society for Racial Hygiene. Alfred Plutz, Eugene Fischer, Ernst Rudin. Okay, Nazis all. Here's Ernst Rudin, who became the Reich Commissar for Eugenics and wrote the Nazi race laws. Here's the obituary he wrote for Plutz in 1940. It is tragic that Plutz did not live to see the solution of the problem of understanding and cooperation of the Nordic races when he believed so ardently in the purposeful leadership of Adolf Hitler and his wholly national and international racial hygienic mission. But let us be a consolation to us that until his last breath, he he maintained an unshakable hope of a victory of conquest of the German race, and that in the then ensuing peace there would follow a victory in racial hygiene. Okay. Now, keynote is given by Henry Fairfield Osborn, the president of the Museum of Natural History. Okay, and it's quoted extensively in the book, but just the flavor. And it's very interesting because of the way they unite. This speech unites the themes of eugenics and environmental. It says, the outstanding generalizations from my world tour may be summed up by the 6 overs, and here's 4 of them. Over-destruction of natural resources worldwide. Over-mechanization and the substitute of machine for animal and human labor. Overproduction both of food and other mechanical wants of mankind. Overpopulation beyond the land areas or the capacity of the natural and scientific resources of the world, with consequent permanent unemployment of the least fitted. This is 1932, remember. Okay, I have reached the opinion that overpopulation and underemployment may be regarded as twin sisters. From this point of view, I find that the United States, which had 112 million people at the time, is overpopulated. I think the present unemployment figures represent a condition likely to be in fact part permanent. While some highly competent people are unemployed, the mass of unemployment is among the less competent, because in every activity it's the less competent who are the first selected for suspension, while the few highly competent people are retained. In nature, these less fitted individuals would gradually disappear, but in civilization we are keeping them in the community in the hope that in brighter days they may find employment. This is only another instance of human civilization going directly against the order of nature and encouraging the survival of the unfittest. Okay? Now, Osborn then went to Germany, got the Goethe Medal from Adolf Hitler. Okay, in 1935, they had a similar conference, World Population Conference in Berlin, in which much of the same crowd went over there. The keynote there was given by Wilhelm Frick, the Nazi interior minister. He was later hung at Nuremberg. Now, as a result of this, this was an international movement. All nations pretty much agreed to shut their doors to Jewish emigration from Germany. During the 30s, it was still possible for Jews to leave Germany. They couldn't take their property with them. They left poor, but they could get out as far as the Germans were concerned. Leave, get. Okay, but they couldn't go anywhere. And this, in fact, is a picture of, you may have heard of the ship, the St. Louis, is one of those poignant episodes. This is 1939. These are German Jews. They're on their way to America, or so they think. Okay, look how happy they are. The ship was turned away. Guy Irving Birch, who I mentioned in one of the previous slides, it's a letter to the editor, Washington Post, May 1939. Don't let them in. In just 6 generations, they'll lead to over 500,000 descendants. They're turned back. Most of them ended up dead. Now let's talk about the Nazis themselves. I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about the Nazis because people know all about them. But I'll just make, and the Nazi Holocaust. But there's a few points I want to make. First of all, they're really high on biology. Rudolf Hess, 1933. National Socialism is nothing but applied biology. Okay? Adolf Hitler. The laws of existence prescribes uninterrupted killing so that the better may live. Now, these people, it is not true that the atrocities that they did were done behind the backs of the German people. There were over 10,000 killing centers in Nazi Germany. Most of them were discovered by Allied forces within hours of their arrival on the scene because you could smell them. Okay? There were millions of Germans involved in this activity, either in these killing centers or on the Eastern Front or elsewhere. Everybody knew someone or related to someone who was involved in this. Okay? You had a political party elected with 18 million votes, which openly said it wanted to basically exterminate the Poles and the Jews in order to occupy the land and create more living space. And which was quite open about the need to kill the unfit domestically. There's some propaganda posters. Here's a picture of some massacre in Lithuania or someplace. And note the spectators. Okay? This stuff was popular. And also in the book, I quote leaflets of the White Rose, which was a Catholic resistance movement opposed to the Nazis during the war, in which they explicitly denounced the genocide going on. These were students in Munich. They knew all about it. If they knew about it, everybody knew about it. Okay, and yet, because this ideology was so pervasive, you could have. I mean, look, yeah, the Nazis had street thugs and all this, but those are not the people that got the job done. The people that get the job done are the people who are capable of sustained effort, of deferred gratification, of working hard, of